I'm going to show you now just how quickly and easily you can learn Spanish. In this video, I've also included an automaticity phase, which will really speed up your ability to find the right Spanish when you're put on the spot. I've also included a section for non-beginners, which you can jump ahead to now using this time code, or better still, stay with us for some extra practice. Welcome to ProSpanish. Right, so have a look at my whiteboard. Now, there's no need to try to memorize anything, just follow my instructions. So first up, see if you can find around the top to look for a taxi. Try and find that phrase, to look for a taxi. Yes, buscar un taxi. Buscar un taxi. What would it mean if I said buscar un banco? Buscar un banco. Yep, to look for a bank. And I bet you know that buscar un hotel is to look for a hotel. Now, find near the bottom on the right to book a hotel. Can you find to book a hotel? Well, you can see it's like to reserve a hotel. To book or to reserve a hotel. Reservar un hotel. Reservar un hotel. How would you say to book or to reserve a taxi? What do you think that would be, mixing up the two things we've done? To book or to reserve a taxi. Reservar un taxi. Reservar un taxi. Or instead of to book a taxi, we might want to order a taxi. So to order a taxi. Well, let's find first of all to order a coffee. Can you find to order a coffee? Yes, pedir un café. Pedir un café is to order a coffee. So how would you say to order a taxi? Pedir un taxi. Pedir un taxi. If you want to say in Spanish, I'm going to is voy a. Voy a. And notice the V is pronounced a bit more like a B in English. So I'm going to is voy a. What do you think it means if I say voy a buscar un taxi? Voy a buscar un taxi. Yeah, I'm going to look for a taxi. So we just put those two bits together. I'm going to and to look for a taxi. Voy a buscar un taxi. How do you think you might say, I'm going to look for a bank? I'm going to look for a bank. Voy a buscar un banco. Voy a buscar un banco. And don't worry at all if you couldn't remember the word for bank. I'll be constantly recycling the language that we learn. And incidentally, that is a key feature throughout my Pro Spanish Levels 1 to 6 course. And it's worth noting that the pace in that course is much more relaxed than what we're doing now, so that you have plenty of time to learn everything as we go. And if you find to order a coffee, again, how would you say, I'm going to order a coffee? Voy a pedir un café. Voy a pedir un café. I'm going to order a coffee. What do you think it means if I say, no voy a pedir pizza? No voy a pedir pizza. Yeah, I'm not going to order pizza. So, to make a negative, we just add no at the beginning. No voy a, I'm not going to. Okay, bottom left, find to use the metro. Usar el metro. Usar el metro. How would you say, I'm not going to use the metro? What would that be? No voy a usar el metro. No voy a usar el metro. And you can probably guess this bit that we could add on the end. Prefiero un taxi. Prefiero un taxi. Yeah, I prefer a taxi. Prefiero un taxi. And we'll just take a quick pause here while I mention my very popular Levels 1 to 6 course. This takes the complete beginner or near beginner right up to a conversational level of Spanish in a series of very easy to follow steps. Now, all the lessons on this YouTube channel are supplementary, whereas the core Levels 1 to 6 is very much a step-by-step program delivered by me, the same teacher as all the other videos on this channel. And while the style is very similar to what you'll be used to from these videos on the channel, the key difference is that every lesson carefully builds on the previous lessons so that you can really feel that progress of going from little or no Spanish up to a level where you can confidently hold a conversation in Spanish. And that course download is available exclusively from prospanish.co.uk. Okay, so we've got I'm going to, voy a. And what about if I want to ask the question, are you going to? Well, are you going to is just vas a. Vas a. So again, it starts with that V sounding more like a B. Vas a. Are you going to? What would it mean if I asked, ¿Vas a usar el metro? ¿Vas a usar el metro? Are you going to use the metro? And perhaps if you're asked that question, you could reply, no, I prefer a taxi. Can you remember? So I prefer is prefiero. And again, don't worry at all if you didn't remember prefiero is I prefer. So how would you say, no, I prefer a taxi? What would that be? No, prefiero un taxi. No, prefiero un taxi. Okay, now on the left-hand side, try to find to play golf. Jugar al golf. Jugar al golf. How would you ask someone, are you going to play golf? ¿Vas a jugar al golf? ¿Vas a jugar al golf? And the good thing about jugar al golf is that it's a bit of a template because we can use lots of other sports that also sound very similar to English. We can have jugar al fútbol, jugar al tenis. Have a guess. How do you think we would say to play rugby? Yeah, jugar al rugby. So if somebody asks you, are you going to play golf? You might answer, no, I prefer to play tennis. I prefer to play tennis. What would that be? Prefiero jugar al tenis. Prefiero jugar al tenis. Okay, the word for first is quite easy to remember. Primero. Primero. So you can see the first bit there. You can see the word prime related to first, prime. Primero, first. How would you say to order a coffee first? What would that be? Pedir un café primero. Pedir un café primero. How would you ask the question? Are you going to order a coffee first? ¿Vas a pedir un café primero? ¿Vas a pedir un café primero? And how would you say, I'm going to look for a taxi first? what would that be? Voy a buscar un taxi primero. Voy a buscar un taxi primero. Or maybe we'd say the first bit at the beginning. Primero voy a buscar un taxi. First, I'm going to look for a taxi. And on the right-hand side, see if you can find to confirm the booking. How would you say, first, I'm going to confirm the booking or the reservation? What would that be? Primero voy a confirmar la reserva. Primero voy a confirmar la reserva. Let's try one with I prefer. Can you remember I prefer? Prefiero. Prefiero, I prefer. How would you say, I prefer to book a hotel first? I prefer to book a hotel first. What would that be? Prefiero reservar un hotel primero. Prefiero reservar un hotel primero. Now, if we want to say I like in Spanish, it's me gusta. Me gusta. I like. What do you think it means if I say me gusta usar el metro? Me gusta usar el metro. I like using the metro, or I like to use the metro. Okay, so finding to play golf. And let's change it to play tennis. How would you say, I like to play tennis, or I like playing tennis? What would that be? Me gusta jugar al tenis. Me gusta jugar al tenis. How about, I like to dance salsa, or I like salsa dancing? What would that be? Look near the top. Me gusta bailar salsa. Me gusta bailar salsa. And we saw earlier that I'm not going to is no voy a. So how do you think you would say I don't like? How would you make me gusta, I like, a negative, I don't like? Yes, no me gusta. No me gusta, I don't like. How would you say I don't like to dance, or I don't like dancing? What would that be? No me gusta bailar. No me gusta bailar. Something you can say if you're being hassled to dance. And how about, we'll see if you can find to study Spanish. Yeah, estudiar español. Estudiar español. Let's cut off the Spanish bit. How would you say, I don't like studying, or I don't like to study? What would that be? No me gusta estudiar. No me gusta estudiar. Actually, let's extend that. How would you say, I don't like studying, I prefer, and again, don't worry if you've forgotten the word for I prefer. So I don't like studying, I prefer to listen to music. So you can find to listen to music. Our phrase is, I don't like studying, I prefer to listen to music. What would that be? No me gusta estudiar. Prefiero escuchar música. No me gusta estudiar. Prefiero escuchar música. And I could keep expanding with more and more add-ons, rapidly increasing your fluency step by step. We could add in I want. I want to do all of these things here. Or do you want? Or we could add in more verb phrases, for example, to sleep, dormir. It could be to sleep well, dormir bien. I'm going to sleep well, voy a dormir bien. And it can be any type of language. You just keep expanding out. And now's a good time to go to our automaticity phase to practice this. First, you'll hear Spanish, and you need to work out what's being said. And then in the second part, you have to translate into Spanish, do the speaking. So you get about 4 seconds processing time. If you need longer, then just pause the video. And so before we go on to that, another reminder that my ProSpanish Levels 1 to 6 course is only available for download from prospanish.co.uk.
Voy a pedir un taxi primero.
I'm going to order a taxi first.
Me gusta visitar el museo.
I like visiting the museum.
¿Vas a reservar un hotel?
Are you going to book a hotel?
Prefiero explorar la región primero.
I prefer to explore the region first.
Me gusta escuchar música en el metro.
I like listening to music on the metro.
Voy a cambiar dinero primero.
I'm going to change money first.
¿Vas a comprar un mapa?
Are you going to buy a map?
¿Vas a confirmar la reserva?
Are you going to confirm the booking?
Prefiero pedir un café primero.
I prefer to order a coffee first. I'm going to order a taxi first. Voy a pedir un taxi primero.
I like visiting the museum.
Me gusta visitar el museo.
Are you going to book a hotel?
¿Vas a reservar un hotel?
I prefer to explore the region first.
Prefiero explorar la región primero.
I like listening to music on the metro.
Me gusta escuchar música en el metro.
I'm going to change money first. Voy a cambiar dinero primero.
Okay, so now let's move on to the non-beginners part of this video. Welcome back if you skipped forward. We're going to build on the language from the first part of the video with some phrasing that's going to make your Spanish sound really natural. So let's start with this. In Spanish, to say, I didn't have time to do something, it's not a literal translation of the English. Instead, we say, no me dio tiempo, literally meaning, it didn't give me time. No me dio tiempo. What do you think it means if I say, no me dio tiempo comprar un mapa? Yeah, I didn't have time to buy a map. No me dio tiempo comprar un mapa. How would you say, I didn't have time to download the app? No me dio tiempo descargar el app. No me dio tiempo descargar el app. How about, I didn't have time to book a hotel? No me dio tiempo reservar un hotel. No me dio tiempo reservar un hotel. And what about I didn't have time to visit? And instead of to visit the museum, how about I didn't have time to visit anything? And in Spanish, we need a double negative. So I didn't have time to visit nothing. And nothing is nada. So what would our sentence be? No me dio tiempo visitar nada. No me dio tiempo visitar nada. How about, well, we've got to prepare a salad. How about I didn't have time to prepare anything? What would that be? No me dio tiempo preparar nada. No me dio tiempo preparar nada. So a very useful phrase, no me dio tiempo. And another phrase that doesn't translate well from English to Spanish, at least not literally, is I'm looking forward to whatever it might be. And in Spanish, we say me hace ilusión. Or in Latin America, where the C is pronounced like a TH, me hace ilusión. So ilusión looks a bit like illusion, but it's more like excitement. It makes me excitement. Not very good as a literal translation, but to say I'm looking forward to something is me hace ilusión. What do you think it means if I say me hace ilusión jugar al golf? Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing golf. Actually, we could add on mañana. Me hace ilusión jugar al golf mañana. I'm looking forward to playing golf tomorrow. How would you say, I'm looking forward to dancing salsa? Me hace ilusión bailar salsa. Me hace ilusión bailar salsa. Let's add on with you to make it something even more to look forward to. With you, contigo. So, me hace ilusión bailar salsa contigo. How about, I'm looking forward to eating pasta in Rome, Roma. Me hace ilusión comer pasta en Roma. Me hace ilusión comer pasta en Roma. And what about if we want to say, I'm really looking forward to it? Well, we'd have to add mucha. Me hace mucha ilusión. So how would you say, I'm really looking forward to studying Spanish? Actually, let's change it to, I'm really looking forward to speaking Spanish. So, hablar español. What would that be? Me hace mucha ilusión hablar español. Me hace mucha ilusión hablar español. And it could be, me hace muchísima ilusión. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Me hace muchísima ilusión hablar español. And another very common, everyday Spanish phrase, which again doesn't literally translate very well. And it's if you want to say, I find something hard. In Spanish, it's me cuesta. Me cuesta. So literally, it costs me. And by the way, una cuesta, so as a noun, una cuesta is a hill. So you can think of it as being uphill to me. Me cuesta. What does it mean if I say, me cuesta bailar salsa? Me cuesta bailar salsa. What does that mean? I find it hard to dance salsa, or to salsa dance. How would you say, I find it hard to speak? Let's say I find it hard to speak in public. In public is nice and easy. En público. So how would we say, I find it hard to speak in public? Me cuesta hablar en público. Me cuesta hablar en público. And maybe we want to say, I find it really hard. I find it very hard. Me cuesta mucho. Me cuesta mucho, whatever it might be. So me cuesta mucho hablar en público. How would you say, I find it really hard to order in Spanish? Me cuesta mucho pedir en español. Me cuesta mucho pedir en español. How about, I find it really hard to play golf? What would that be? Me cuesta mucho jugar al golf. Me cuesta mucho jugar al golf. And let's have a look at our fourth one. If we say sigo sin, the literal translation is I continue or I carry on without, whatever it might be. See if you can work out how we would actually translate this into English. Sigo sin descargar el app. Sigo sin descargar el app. Yeah, I would say, I still haven't downloaded the app. Or I still haven't managed to download the app. So, sigo sin. I continue without. But more naturally, I still haven't done, whatever it might be. How would you say, I still haven't used the metro? Let's add in Madrid. I still haven't used the metro in Madrid. Sigo sin usar el metro en Madrid. Sigo sin usar el metro en Madrid. How about, I still haven't changed any money? Sigo sin cambiar dinero. Sigo sin cambiar dinero. What about, I still haven't confirmed the booking? What would that be? Sigo sin confirmar la reserva. Sigo sin confirmar la reserva. And instead of dancing salsa, let's have to dance with Pablo, con Pablo. How would you say, I still haven't managed to dance with Pablo? Sigo sin bailar con Pablo. Sigo sin bailar con Pablo. And next, we have a very useful phrase to say, I'll settle for whatever it might be. In Spanish, it's I'll conform myself with this. Me conformo con whatever it might be. So, of course, in English, we wouldn't say I conform myself with something. We'd say I'll settle for whatever it might be. Or I'll be happy with whatever. So let's use some of the bits on the end of our verbs. How would you say, I'll settle for a taxi? So I'll just be happy with a taxi. What would that be? Me conformo con un taxi. Me conformo con un taxi. How about, I'll settle for a coffee. I'll be happy with just a coffee. What would that be? Me conformo con un café. Me conformo con un café. And using the full phrase, how would you say, I'll just be happy with booking a hotel? Me conformo con reservar un hotel. Me conformo con reservar un hotel. Okay, let's move on to the automaticity phase now. So first part, just listen to the Spanish and work out what's being said. And in the second part, you'll need to say the Spanish. You'll have about 4 seconds to come up with your answers. And if you need more time, then just pause the video.
Me hace ilusión visitar el museo.
I'm excited to visit the museum.
Sigo sin confirmar la reserva.
I still haven't managed to confirm the booking.
Me cuesta usar el metro.
I find it hard to use the metro.
No me dio tiempo comprar un mapa.
I didn't have time to buy a map.
Me hace ilusión comer pasta.
I'm excited to eat pasta.
Sigo sin cambiar dinero.
I still haven't managed to change money.
Me cuesta pedir un café.
I find it hard to order a coffee.
No me dio tiempo reservar un hotel.
I didn't have time to book a hotel.
I find it hard to use the metro.
Me cuesta usar el metro.
I didn't have time to buy a map.
No me dio tiempo comprar un mapa.
I'm excited to eat pasta.
Me hace ilusión comer pasta.
I still haven't managed to change money.
Sigo sin cambiar dinero.
I find it hard to order a coffee.
Me cuesta pedir un café.
I didn't have time to book a hotel.
No me dio tiempo reservar un hotel.
I'm excited to explore the region.
Me hace ilusión explorar la región. I still haven't managed to study Spanish.
Sigo sin estudiar español.
I find it hard to confirm the booking. Me cuesta confirmar la reserva.
I didn't have time to confirm the booking.
No me dio tiempo confirmar la reserva.
I still haven't managed to use the metro.
Sigo sin usar el metro.